Hi there, Arthur at Wisely Automotive here. We thought we'd make this impromptu behind-the-scenes style video showing you a car that has just arrived with us and what sort of stuff we get up to while getting them ready for sale. Because I'm sure it's easy to think that they just arrive, get a quick wash, and that's all that's needed to justify a couple grand of profit. And while that might be okay for some sellers, I personally wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing that our cars are going out with things we know are wrong. Don't get me wrong, these are ultimately used cars, but there are some basic standards we like to adhere to here at Wisely. The difference between us and most other sellers is we deal exclusively with i3s day in, day out, and we've sold nearly 300 of them now. So we're not suggesting other dealers are letting cars out with faults on purpose. It might just be completely innocent and they just don't have as much experience with them as us. So that really is the whole point of this video. We often see people online and on forums grabbing a bargain, but then within a few weeks they start posting about niggles, faults, or even just worn tyres which they want to get sorted. In some cases they're spending thousands on top of their purchase price, so it really makes you think, why not just buy a well-prepared one in the first place? And that's before we even delve into how much warranties can vary, but that's for another video. Okay, so for the purposes of this demonstration, we're looking at this 2015 65 plate 60 amp hour range extender with just over 42,000 miles and a really nice spec. It's come to us through We Buy Any Car, which is where a lot of dealers will be buying their i3s, so this car could have just as easily ended up elsewhere. And it's arrived not too badly robbed of parts. We've generally got everything. We've got a V5, we've got 2 keys, we've got floor mats, although they're a little bit worse for wear, and we've got a first aid kit. We don't have a cup holder, which is quite common, as these tend to be quite desirable on the used market. And also it's come to us with absolutely no charging cables, so we'll be needing to source a granny charger for it. We'll start with a cosmetic exterior appraisal, and to be honest, we're super chuffed with it given its age and mileage. The wheels we've unfortunately missed. They've already been sent off for refinishing at a diamond cut specialist. They weren't too bad. We'll try and overlay some photos now if we can find them. 2 of them had some pretty bad corrosion, and also 2 of them needed new tyres, so just to complete the job, we've basically sent all 4 off for diamond cut and new tyres. Cost to us, it's about £300 plus VAT for the diamond cutting, and the tyres at a wholesale price are about £350 plus VAT as well. Paintwork wise, as I said, we're actually really pleased with the condition of this car. It looks to us like all original paint, which is absolutely great to see on a car that's basically 6 years old. Very few chips. There are a few, for example, things like this, which we will touch in, but certainly doesn't warrant being painted. Wherever possible, we try to strive for original paint. Now, one of the things that's really worth pointing out is the Rex filler flap. Really common issue on earlier i3s in that you go to open it and it doesn't open. Even if you've pressed the button on the inside, it just seems stuck. Now, this is commonly misunderstood as a hardware issue, but 9 times out of 10 it's actually a software issue. It just needs recalibration, which we do on the BMW system once the car's hooked up. Once that's done, the flap will open up without any problems by pressing the button, which is just there. Door handles can be very loose. It's a bit of a strange design, so again there's adjustment capabilities here, but on this car all is well. While we're here as well, door edges. A lot of these cars spend their time in city centres and will hit walls and stuff. This one's done really well. There's hardly any damage there, and again it's something that's difficult to repaint, so we might just touch in that little area there, but other than that, really pleased with the condition of this one. All i3s of course also have a charging port door. Now there's 2 things that can go wrong here. There's a actuator here, and then there's also an actuator which actually holds the charger in, and both of those can fail over time. This one's absolutely fine, but it is starting to be quite a common thing we're seeing on older cars. Moving to the back of the car, there's quite a few things to point out to you here. If I open up the boot first, this car's absolutely fine, it's holding its own weight, but these gas struts can, on the very earliest cars, start to get quite weak. The tailgate, cosmetically, is one of the most popular parts that we send to the paint shop. Because of the flat load floor here, we often see them scratched. Now, this one is what I would call borderline, in that if it was a 1 or 2 year old car, we would probably get it painted. With this one, a really good compound polish will actually bring it right up to scratch. We'll probably touch in areas like this where the paint is missing, but other than that, it should suffice. Moving further down are the parking sensors. Now, quite common as these get older, and depending on what environment they've been exposed to, is this kind of pitting that you see. So if you see here, we've got a bit of pitting. This one's absolutely fine. Now, this one's just at the stage where we can polish that and inhibit that from spreading for a good while, but it is something to look out for. It doesn't actually tend to affect their performance, but it's just a cosmetic thing. In the boot itself, we've got the floor mats, which these will need a lot of work, but they will come up nice using sort of chemical cleaning methods. We've got a first aid kit, and we've got a parcel shelf, which often goes missing. People leave them in their garage, etc., before selling the car, and they're very expensive to replace. I think the last one we bought from BMW was about 260-ish plus VAT, something like that. And also a lot of them are often broken, so this cord here on either side will fray just up here. The only last thing to mention back here is just the eDrive badge. Now, these the enamel on them starts to peel after a while, and there's not really much that can be done. We have tried repainting it, but eventually the paint starts coming off again. So these days what we do is we just strip off all the remaining paint and just leave it completely silver, and that looks good and is a permanent solution. This side of the cars, there's really nothing to report. It's all pretty much perfect. I don't even think we've got any door edge chips, so yeah, really well kept car. These wheels are what we call dolly wheels, which is what we use for just moving cars around while the original wheels are off being worked on. And one thing I forgot to mention at the back of the car is just the aerial, which screws on and actually is only there for the FM signal rather than the DAB signal, but again, often it's missing or it's chewed. So especially here in London, we'll get foxes and cats and stuff chewing it in the middle of the night, and they're £23.90 plus VAT to replace. So again, it's good to see that we don't need to spend that. And at the front of the car, all really that's left to mention is the windscreen, which has absolutely no stone chips, so that's an immediate telltale sign that it's been replaced. And sure enough, this is a FYO windscreen, which has been fitted well. None of the connectors here are broken. This trim is more or less in place. And as far as replacement screens go, obviously BMW screens are perfect, but most commonly you get FYO or Nord glass being fitted. FYO is definitely our preferred one to see. Nord glass we've seen sort of varying degrees of quality with. So yeah, that's all good there as well. Last thing to look at on the outside is the front area, which if I just open that up, you can have a quick look at. So there's a few things we're looking out for here. Firstly, we're making sure that the locking wheel nut is correct for this car. Obviously we know that because we've already used it to remove the wheels. On this particular car, the tyre inflation gunk expires 02/19, so being sort of 2.5 years overdue, we'll look to get that replaced. And other than that, there's one other thing which I've just spotted, which is that right here there should be an emergency pull release for the fuel filler door. Now that's probably just got lost down there, but we'll have to go find it, retrieve it, and make sure it's working. And that's it on the outside. Now let's go inside and see what's what there. So we've got a really quite attractive interior on this car. It's been optioned with the Lodge interior. We've also got privacy glass, the professional media package, and you might have just spotted as well the glass opening sunroof. In terms of preparation, common thing back here is these Isofix caps, which get broken due to the way they're designed. They're just quite brittle, and so this door's missing. So they're £13.80 plus VAT each to replace, so we're going to have to replace 2 of those, and in fact, yeah, the clip is completely broken. So one issue that we do have on this car that we've got to add to our to-do list, again really common on i3s of all ages actually, is a failed driver heated seat. You'll press the heated seat button, and after a few minutes that will stop working, and you can't turn it back on until the car's been turned off for a while. This is caused by the elements in the seat cushion. You can damage those and it causes a short circuit and the system turns off. Unfortunately, it means removing the seat, stripping all this down and fitting a brand new part, which is essentially the whole cushion with those elements built in. It's £108 plus VAT just for the part, and a bundle of labour to do properly. And finally on this car, in terms of our to-do list for the interior, is this panel here. If I start pressing some buttons, you'll see, for example, this LED here is starting to flicker. To get a replacement panel from BMW is £875 plus VAT. To save that money and to be slightly less wasteful, what we do is we have these disassembled and we replace each of these green LEDs with more reliable ones. Finally, in here, as mentioned earlier, we appear to be missing a cup holder. £58.75 plus VAT from BMW for a bit of plastic. So we will try and find one of those second hand if we can. Obviously the whole car does need a deep clean, as I said earlier, but behind the dirt it's a really well cared for car, and it's going to clean up really nice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the car up in the air on the ramp and have a look at it from the underneath and see if there's any more surprises for us installed under there. So mechanically everything appears to be in good order. One of the things we've spotted, however, is there is a felt protective covering here which should continue all the way through, and that's missing. Could well have been torn during a previous service, and also there is evidence of a bit of an oil leak, so that will need looking into, but it's due a service anyway, so that will all be done in one hit. Also, while I'm here, one thing to point out is the corrosion here on this oil filter. So this is something we commonly see, and unfortunately it means these are very hard work to remove. Also, once removed, the face of the block where the oil filter mounts also has signs of corrosion, so usually that needs removing before the new filter's put in place, otherwise it will quickly corrode again. Unfortunately, it's just poor design, and they corrode a lot. Also, quite often that's where the oil leaks. So in terms of mechanical work, other than the service and addressing the oil leak, the only other thing that has come up, which is not at all uncommon on i3s of any age over about 2-3 years old, is the front gaiters or suspension damper boots being split. So this one's just started to split up here. It's very common, and it's not particularly anything to worry about, although of course this serves a purpose. It's there to stop grit, mud and water getting into this, which is your damper. So it needs replacing, and yeah, we'll get that done on both sides. Interesting to note as well, while we're here, the brake pads have about 5mm left on them, so they're just over half worn. This car's done 40 odd thousand miles, so that's one less thing to have to worry about in terms of costs if you're running an EV. While the car's on the ramp, we've hooked it up to the BMW system, which shows us any codes or issues which might be underlying but not immediately obvious. There's codes relating to the driver's heated seat, which we already know about by having tested that on the way back, but other than that, there's nothing alarming. One thing which the diagnostic system has not pointed out, but it's something we've noticed while road testing the car, is that the air conditioning is not blowing quite as cold as it should. Unfortunately, this again is quite common on older i3s. At best, it will just be a recharge after doing a vacuum test, but more than likely it's going to need a new condenser. The part for that is £319 plus VAT from BMW, and you can expect to pay about £700 all in if you wanted that done at a main dealer. Service history wise, the car has a full BMW service history. However, its last service should have been done in April 2021, so we'll get this carried out as part of our sales preparation. Cost wise to us, that's about £200 using all original BMW fluids, parts and filters. 3 things I forgot to mention is that the user handbook was missing, the cord attached to the filler cap was torn, and the car is due a recall at BMW, which we'll arrange to have completed before the car goes up for sale. There's also quite a few other issues we regularly see on i3s, which actually were fine on this car, but here's a quick list, and maybe if this video goes down well, we'll try to cover these in another one. Now, thanks to the power of editing, here's some footage of the car gleaming, fully prepared, with all the work now completed. Overall, we were really pleased with this purchase, and we've certainly seen a lot worse, although a bit of a shame about the aircon, as this isn't something we were expecting or budgeted for. But better it fails now so we can sort it in-house, rather than post-sale as a warranty claim. Prevention is always better than cure. In terms of overall costs, we've added everything up, and on the left you'll see our total spend on parts and any direct costs we've incurred, such as fluids and filters for the service, outsourcing the reassembly of the driver's seat, getting the new AC condenser gassed, and getting the HVAC control panel repaired. This doesn't account for any labour though. The right hand column gives you a rough indication of what we would ordinarily charge for these jobs if booked in to us, and these would probably be a lot higher at a main dealer. So everything added up, that's a total cost of nearly £2,000 to us, and nearly £3,500 if you bought the car unprepared, be that privately or from a dealer, and wanted to get it all rectified. And a reminder, we haven't even touched on the cost of providing quality warranty cover. You can quite quickly see why a couple grand of margin just doesn't cut it for us, and hopefully armed with this info, you can question whether those being advertised considerably cheaper are being done so at the expense of much of this prep work being done. We hope this video gives you a useful insight into our standards here at Wisely and what to look out for when shopping around for a used BMW i3. Please make sure you're comparing apples with apples. Thank you for watching, and please consider subscribing for more i3 related content in the near future.